Literary Society as well, because they are the ones who have taken the initiative, thanks to the request of our very own Kishi Singh, to have the book on the table. Because generally on a topic which terrifies us, which doesn't makes us happy, we don't want to touch it. We want to brush it under the carpet. We don't want to know, because we believe we are whiter than thou. It doesn't happen to me. Because it doesn't happen to me, I don't care about it. At the same time, one of the coping techniques is that even if it happens to us, we want to brush it aside. We don't want to confront it because it's too difficult to deal with. So thank you all for coming here and for giving us your valuable time. I hope that when you go back today, you don't go away with a heavy heart, despite the fact that the topic is very heavy. But we hope that you go away having learned something about what it is, how does it happen, and how to deal with it. And as Charanjit said, I have been involved with the topic of incest abuse as from the research perspective, and now we are working on the delivery part, awareness and advocacy also. In this, if I may start with your permission, Priya.
Yes, please.
Somebody wrote a poem. We believe, one myth I want to bust right at the beginning, we believe that abuse happens to only one gender, not the other. We believe that the perpetrator is always one gender and not the other. I'm going to share a poem with you, just a few lines. It was written by a man. The poem goes, I was a lovable child, so lovable that my uncle took me to his bathroom every afternoon. For me, it was horrifying. For him, it was satisfying. When other kids were enjoying their sandcastle wars, I was being raped behind those closed doors. I was enjoyed like a toy. No one bats an eye at my kind of victims because I'm not a girl, I'm a boy. It took this boy 23 years to share what happened with him when he was not even 6 years old. So we can just imagine the kind of courage Priya would have had to have in her heart to share what happened with her in the book and put it out on the table. Priya, welcome.
Thank you. Can I say my thank yous now or later?
We can do that later.
Sure.
Priya, please tell us in 2 minutes, what is Priya all about?
Priya was born on December 18th, 1972 in Dakshai. Went to school in St. Mary's Convent School, Kasoli. Studied in Chandigarh. My graduation, went to Bombay. Started flying with the airlines, Jet Airways first, Singapore Airlines, and then Emirates. Post that, got married to a Pakistani national in Karachi. Was 5 years in Pakistan. Ended up in a messy divorce and all alone in Karachi. Onto the streets of Karachi, penniless, homeless, jobless, with just my 4 dogs, and had to fight a court case to kind of get my sanity back, and also how I was violated in Pakistan. Came back to India after 24 years and had nowhere to go because I had no family, no friends. I just had a friend in Bombay who gave me shelter and my dog's shelter. So when I came to India after 24 years, I was just a walking, talking skeleton, weighed 37 kilos, had loads of health issues, couldn't drink water, couldn't eat food, just body was full of ulcers, and tried to commit suicide twice, but my dogs kind of pulled me to wake up every morning to take them for a walk. So suicide was always there. It was in the back of my head that maybe I can do it tomorrow afternoon. So it just gave me hope to move on from one day to another. And to feed them and to kind of be independent and not be a burden on someone, I had to work. And for that, I had to take care of my body. So then I started slowly picking up the pieces of myself and then my life. Started healing myself. And here I am today, did a PhD in holistic and spiritual healing, brought animal Reiki to India. That also because of one of my dog who had kidney failure, she led me to kind of heal animals, because the connection was very, very strong from Pakistan till India. They were my only family, and they gave me everything what humans couldn't. So every time I looked for a hand, I found a paw. And today here I am, helping others who have gone through something similar like I have, just to let them know that they're not alone, and life is not over, even though it seems over. And there's hope. And no matter what you've gone through in your childhood, you can heal. And to teach the parents that listen to your children, trust what they're trying to say, because they're only going to say it once and they're not going to tell you again what happened to them. And to tell you all and every person, like, create awareness and educate people that childhood, you really need to learn how to parent your children, because what happens in childhood, it carries on to lifelong. The trauma does not leave victims. There is no amount of money that can take away your PTSD. There's no amount of money that can take away your flashbacks and your nightmares and everything. It's there, it's a part of you. So today I'm helping wounded children of dysfunctional families to put their lives back together. After healing my own self, I'm teaching others how to heal themselves. So I'm helping humans and I'm helping animals. And here I am today. And then I wrote the book, The Wounded Healer, mainly because my healing was incomplete if I didn't bring this all out. This was just locked away in a box somewhere and I never really looked at it. Catharsis of a kind, and what happened to me matters. That's why I wrote this book, and secondly, to tell people out there that they're not alone. People who are suffering in silence.
Priya, thank you for smiling through the tears.
Yeah.
It takes courage.
Thank you.
Okay. And it also brings forth the fact that, as I said the other day, that us human beings, we are great actors.
Yes,
We carry the mask. And hopefully today we'll be able to understand what is there beneath the mask, and perhaps layers of mask that we carry. Shall we, for a few minutes,
Yes.
would you like to go back to your childhood, or shall we touch upon it later?
We can, depending what you want to ask.
I wanted to know what is there in the book. If you could briefly mention what happened in the childhood and the reasons you went into the airlines, and just brief points.
Okay. What's in the book? The book is my memoir. It's about my life. From the moment I touched down, the moment I was born, and I was given away, and what happened in my childhood when I was passed around from one man to another. I didn't know what was family. I didn't understand what is love. I don't understand what's affection. I still don't understand so many things. I don't have a concept of it. And the book talks about the journey from a 5-year-old, 3-year-old, what was happening in mind, body. Didn't have any clue, but was just living through. For me, it was like a survival thing. One day after the another, one day after the another. So ran away from home because they wanted me to get married at 18, 19. So for me, she kind of messed up my childhood. My biggest abuser was my mother, by the way. So if we're talking about abuser, they're not hiding in the bushes anywhere. They're growing in our homes, and this epidemic is in our homes, which we need to address. So I ran away from home because I didn't want her to take charge of my life and ruin the rest of my life. I needed to be in control. Ran away, got into the airlines, got myself independent. Through that, went through PTSD, a million times, suicide, depression, bipolar disorder, everything. But I had two parts. The Priya was in two parts. There was one which was wounded and broken. There was one for the world, which was handling 300 passengers a day, smiling through it all, and nobody knew what was happening. So I lived that life for many, many, many years, till I was 37 years old, till everything fell flat and I was ground zero, rock bottom, in Pakistan, in Karachi, where I lost every single thing, even my will to survive. And that's when I came to India, and healing started, and then how I healed myself, how now I'm healing others, how I kind of picked up myself. Fair amount of it is in the book. And towards the end, how do you kind of address child abuse, and what do you make out of it? How do you shift your perspective?
We'll be talking
Yes.
at length about
Yes.
the toolkit about
healing. Yeah.
About healing. For just a few minutes, Priya, I would like to go back to what you understand is the root cause of abuse. Why do we abuse each other? Why do we abuse children? Why do we abuse anybody for that matter?
See, what you need to understand is dynamics of the family. In this part of the continental globe, the family dynamics, right? In Asian cultures. Our parents are wounded. We don't understand our parents still had work to do on themselves.
So it's a cycle of
Yes,
abuse.
so it's like a generational trauma. My mother was wounded, so she wounded me or got me into this abuse. If I didn't stop the cycle of abuse, I didn't heal myself, I would pass it on to my children. So there's not one thing that why we abuse, hurt people, right?
Yeah.
And so the most important gift that you can give to your children is heal yourself first. And what happens in the abuser's mind, we become our own abusers. After going through so much of abuse, we abuse others and we don't even realize it.
Yes. I think I can understand that because recently I came across one gentleman who was the third generation victim in his family. So his grandfather was part of the World War II, and he was traumatized, and abusing his own wife and daughter was his way of coping with what he saw during the war. Once that happened, then his mother, grandfather's daughter, his own mother, she started abusing all the three sons.
Wow.
So it passed on to the next generation. Now these boys, all three of them, they took a conscious decision that it has gone on long enough and it is time we put a stop to it. So these three boys, they recognized we have suffered, so we have a tendency to abuse because we want to get out of it from our system, because we have become paralyzed and we don't care, whatever it is, whatever element it is. They went through psychotherapy and they realized that the two of the boys are safe, but the third one has a tendency. So the third one has made a decision that he's never going to marry.
Yep.
So if you can look at the kind of impact one person abusing one person does, it goes on for a generation and it changes the life decisions of an individual and probably a family.
Absolutely.
And what kind of decisions were in your life which you changed or you might have taken differently, Priya?
If I was not abused?
Yes. What is the impact of abuse in your life?
See, this is standard. You will always make choices from your subconscious mind, which is your abused part. You will choose abusive partners, abusive friends, abusive workplace.
Is that because that's the only thing you recognize?
It's normal.
It's normal.
Okay, and it's familiar. So you want to stay there. You don't know any other. I didn't have any other concept. For me, this was love.
Yeah.
Abuse is synonymous to love.
Yeah.
So I stayed in the familiar zone, even though you know
Yeah. It is
that
not.
it's kind of not okay. You know it's in your heart, but your mother used to do it, your father used
That's
to do
familiar
it.
territory.
Yes. And you're scared to get out of your comfort zone because you don't know any other way. And it's a cycle. Because you don't know self-love. You don't know how to care for yourself. This is how you were brought up. The way we are cared for as infants, that is how we will relate to everybody else in our adult life.
And repeat later on.
Yes.
Is there an element of culture which comes into play here?
Definitely. Because here we are told to bury it and to deal with it and to survive. We don't understand. We've never given a concept of healing or even talking openly what's happened. If your uncle is sexually abusing you, who's going to believe you in the house? They're going to tell you, shut up. It's okay. Right? So culture, yes. Because abusers are from the family. Family friends, people who are around. And family honor or shame, whatever it is. So we're supposed to respect the abusers. You understand
So
what I'm
is it because, if for example, if I had to step back, is it because that dealing with abuse is never taught to us in schools, at home, in college, in any curriculum?
Yes.
Is it because we are sheltered from the so-called abuse? That
No.
we don't know how to deal with it?
No, we have normalized abuse. It's
Yeah.
part of growing up. We grow up being verbally abused by our parents, physically beaten up by our parents. It's so normal, right?
Yeah.
What we need to
Physical
do is we
abuse.
need to recognize that this is abuse. It's not normal, guys, and we need to change that.
How many types of abuse can you put on the table? Would you please do that for us? Not just sexual abuse, but other types of abuse also.
Verbal abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional neglect is a big one. The scars and wounds are lifelong, emotional abuse. And then what we call in psychology is helicopter parenting, which is called pushy parenting. So your abuse doesn't have to be serious side of the spectrum. What happened to me? It could be as simple as parents being overprotective of a child. You see?
Can you give us an example of physical abuse from your life?
I was beaten up like an animal. My mother's, like, she loved the sight of blood for some odd reason, and she would just carry on doing it till some part of my body would bleed. So she had an obsession with seeing blood. I don't even remember my body looking normal without scars or bruises. It was just a normal thing of growing up. You see?
And the scars and bruises will be
Yes.
visible.
Yes, they would be visible in school. I had shot till here, and there would be blue bruises here and purple bruises, and the nuns would all
Nobody
look at it.
stepped in, nobody asked?
No. And they knew it. I was so close to the school. I was living next to the school. They all knew it. They just watched in silence, and they didn't do nothing about it.
Nobody at home, your father, your sister?
No. They all knew about it, but nobody could stand up against her, you see.
Why do you think that was the case?
It enabled her, of course, because they were just terrified of her, of what her reaction would be. Because she would go mental when she would beat me up. She would lock me up and then she would beat me up. So for them it's normal, right? Like I said, we have normalized abuse. Yes, she's beating up because she was taking out her frustration, or it would come on to my father or other family members, and nobody really interferes in other people's affairs. In our
But
culture,
in
do
your
we?
case, your own family did not interfere
Not
either.
at all. Not family, not neighbors, not friends, no nothing.
So it's a classic case of dysfunctional families?
Yes. Dysfunctional families, I have not seen any family which is functional. Every single family is dysfunctional, we're just not aware of it.
Yeah. I think if we look at the culture of abuse that we have, I do not have the figures for other types of abuse, physical abuse or domestic violence, for example, because of the nature of my work. Within the 3.5-year-old research that we have, the empirical study, in incest abuse, 40% of the participants have confirmed that they were witnesses. मेरे साथ नहीं हुआ, but I know somebody else to whom it happened. And 1 in 5 have confirmed that they were a victim themselves, that it happened to them. And even if we look at the government figures, the 2007 Ministry of Women and Child Welfare, they
Yes.
had done a study. In that also, more than 50% of the children had
Children, yes.
confirmed that they
Yes.
had been abused. Interesting part, I don't know whether any of you remember, but in that particular study, more boys had confirmed to have been victims than the girls. So please protect your boys as much as you do the girls. So if we may continue, the physical abuse was there.
Yes.
There was no support from the school.
No. I just want to add something over there.
Please.
India rates highest in child abuse, by the way. 88% of that happens in our homes.
And I don't
And
think
we
there
don't
is-
have any laws.
We don't have any. Well, the laws are there. We have POCSO in place and we have other laws, but people either do not have the faith in the law, they do not want to get involved with the police because of family honor and the name being dragged into the newspapers. And at times the media also reports the matters irresponsibly.
Yes.
Which puts the victim in the limelight rather than holding the abuser responsible. So somewhere I think the entire society needs to
Yes.
come together to address this issue responsibly. Moving on, Priya, if I may ask, the life you had till you were 37. Now, we are told when we are coming up, growing up in school, etc., we have some elements of life which we hold very dear. We believe love is going to be there in life. We believe we are supposed to believe in God and we have faith, whatever that faith is. We have hope in our heart. How did your cycle of abuse impact any of these important elements of life?
I had faith and I did have hope. Definitely, that kept me going, you see. And not really believed in any organized religion particularly, but whatever I grew up in. I knew that it was probably to defy my mother even, that I'm not going to let her kind of get to me. I'm not going to let her ruin my life. So that
You wanted to be...
Yes, to take charge of my life, that this is it, this is where she stops, and then I take over. So that faith, that courage, that insight, I knew that I'm going to make it. I'm going to get out of it. And it was like, it became my life mission to get out of her hell and kind of prove it to her that I can make something out of myself. So you can call it faith, you can call it courage, you can call it anything you please.
How did it impact your relationships? Your friendships?
Big time. I had no friends. I only had abusers. I till date, I am incapable of making friends because you live in isolation and you're ashamed of your past and you don't know how people are going to look at you and relate to you. So you kind of turn into an introvert. And trust issues is the big thing. You just don't trust people. You don't know who's going to do what. Everybody has an agenda. And relationships, of course, I picked up most of my romantic partners, maybe two. Yeah, I had two relationships for marriage, from my subconscious mind, from my wounded part. So they turned out to be my abusers, even my ex-husband. So what I'm trying to say is childhood will impact every aspect of your life. Not just your health, not just your mental, physical aspect, your genes, your immunity system, your brain development, your body, your interpersonal relationships, everything. Nothing is untouched with this disease. Like it spreads everywhere. People are not aware of it.
It takes control of your life.
Everything, because you're only making decisions from that wounded part of you, the part which is lost, which is abandoned, which is rejected. And if you don't heal those parts, you are repeating those dynamics throughout. You're recycling those experiences without even knowing what you're doing.
Can you give us 2 or 3 examples of physical symptoms which you suffered? Forget the scars and the bruises which were visible, but other kind of physical symptoms which perhaps, we should be keeping an eye open for. I mean, stomachache is one thing I've been told.
Yeah, children are not going to come and tell you that I'm dealing with this or I'm having difficulty dealing with this difficult emotion. They'll have a stomachache, or they will not talk, or they will be isolated. They would not like things which they used to like earlier. They will not talk. They'll go silent.
Or they would like to be in certain company and avoid another company?
Older company, I guess, probably, or just in their own company. I have seen they just are subdued, submissive, and don't talk much, just go quiet. And health issues, yes, it starts with stomach, anger, excessive crying, meltdowns, tantrums. Those are the ways your child is trying to show you that there's something up.
So if any of us, at least present here or listening to this interview, if you see any child, any individual, even an adult, if that individual is doing things, saying things which are uncharacteristic, which he or she has not done in the past, and you suddenly find them doing or behaving in a manner which is not normal as per their character, then please do keep an eye on that. At the same time, I would also request that just because the person may be feeling hungry and not feeling hungry that much now, maybe there is some other physical ailment and nothing to do with abuse. So please don't jump to the conclusions. You have to connect all the dots together. If majority of the dots seem to be that there is an issue of abuse which might be there of any kind, that is when you step in. Just because 1 or 2 dots are red doesn't mean that you jump to the guns and you probably go on the wrong path. That might actually cause more harm than good.
Yeah. And basically educating parents. Parents are the main who kind of literally impact most than others. And Absolutely. You will see the aftermath in adult life when they did the research in Harvard on these kids who had a broken relationship with their mother. 35 years later, these kids were all grown up, and 95% of them had heart disorder.
Yes.
So there is a missing link here. Your childhood links up to what you are facing through right now. in terms of diseases, mental disorders, or anything.
Well, they do say you get ulcers by not what you eat, but what's eating you.
Yes, absolutely.
And there was another example. We held an awareness session in which parents and children both were together. The child spoke with us in confidence about incidents happening in personal life. And when we called in the mother, then the mother actually fell apart that it happened to me. Why did it have to happen to my child? So this is something which is ingrained in our system, in our society, in our thought process. As Priya has been saying, we have normalized it. We just believe कि एक थप्पड़ मार दिया तो क्या हो गया, या ऐसा कर दिया तो क्या हो गया. Why don't we actually take a stand that if we were hit when we were young, maybe our father or our mother, gave us a whack round the head, it hurt us. Somewhere we felt little, we felt, we didn't feel nice. So if it wasn't nice for us at that time, why are we considering it to be normal and it's okay, मेरे साथ हुआ, उसके साथ हुआ, क्या हो गया? We need to break that cycle somewhere.
Because we don't know any other way to parent. You will only parent your children the way you were
The way you
parented,
were.
unless you heal your own self.
Yes. Any other signs and symptoms of abuse?
Later on in adult life,
Yeah.
so many. You want me to name psychologicals first and the other health issues? I can tell you: autoimmune disease, fibromyalgia, heart disorders, liver disease, cancer, chronic fatigue. Let's come to psychological: anxiety, depression, guilt, trust issues, relationship issues, searching for a parent partner, self-harm, suicide, just to name a few.
Well,
That's quite a list.
the list is long, and believe you me, the list is not off the mark. Priya has just shared what she went through her life, but in our research, we have more than 800 submissions, and each one is more remarkable than the other. I always, that one-line story which changed my life was, I was raped by my father when I was 8, and I'm a boy.
Wow.
So after reading that one line, from being in the creative field of stone and wood, where I was doing wonderful sculptures and creating gardens and interiors, everything changed from that one line into research and awareness, advocacy and training on incest abuse. I thought I had read the worst line possible, worst story possible. Till about 18 months later, I read an even shorter line. And that line was, he was an animal. Bhai. It is happening all around us.
Yes.
We just don't want to face it because it makes us uncomfortable, because we don't have the answers, because we don't know how to deal with it. Priya, if I may, I would like to move on to the toolkit, if you can share with us that first, if that toolkit which you used as a survivor yourself, and then the next one I would like you to share as family members, as friends, as a society. If we come across such incidents, how should we behave? So we start with you as a person, as a survivor.
Number one was, I needed to be authentic with my own self. What I was running away from, what I was hiding, and what I was covering up behind all those masks, I had to sit with it face to face. That this happened, I had to acknowledge it. I had to understand my wounded child, understand what she wanted. So I needed to be totally honest with myself. That's the number one thing. Hey, in order to heal your hell, you need to see your hell first. So instead of being in denial, I had to acknowledge that this is the reason. And when I understood the link between my childhood and what my present life is, divorce, marriage issues, health issues, everything, that's when my eyes opened that I can't hide it away and I can't suppress it and I can't your past is going to You can't
come in
outrun.
front
Yes,
of you.
you can't. What we're doing all our lives is projecting our past into a present moment.
There is a saying in Punjabi which we use quite often, and that is ki mulla bhajya maut to age maut khadi.
It's there.
We can't run
Yes.
away from it.
No, you cannot outrun your past, and I couldn't either when stuff happened in Pakistan and the divorce. So what was the first thing was owning it, unpacking your suitcase, your baggage, emotional baggage that you carry, and journaling was one thing which helped me a lot.
Okay.
And I would say the work that I'm doing, therapy, holistic life coaching, that's one thing. People need to talk. You need to talk first. You need to have that safe space where you are able to speak about what happened to you. Well, unfortunately, I had to be my own coach and my own healer. However, that's what I do for people now. So, and making it your life's thing, learning self-love, creating safe environment for yourself, safe relationships. The biggest out of this is learning how to care for yourself, because you were not cared for as a kid, you see, and you were neglected when you were abused. That concept does not exist. And I still struggle with it. Till date, I struggle with self-love.
We feel guilty if
Yes.
we give preference to our own
Yes.
being.
Yes. Because selfless is something which we are taught, and being selfish is frowned upon,
Yeah.
right? So,
But there is a fine line between being selfish and self-love.
see, if you are not in alignment with yourself, if you're not looking after yourself, you're of no use to anybody else, right? And you are projecting the same stuff to your kids, and you're experiencing it all throughout in your life. So what's the point? Everything is, you need to look inwards first. There's nothing outside. If you're looking for that love from your partner, it ain't coming. If you're looking for that validation from somebody else, it ain't coming. You need to be your motivator. Self-love, self-esteem, self-respect. There's self in front of it. Why? It comes from self.
It comes from within. So, Priya, just to make it more, just to become an example. For example, if I come to you and I come as an abused child or an abused adult, I share my part of the trauma with you. What is it that you would say to me? I'm asking this question because I would like the audience to understand, to learn what to say and what not to say.
First and foremost, any victim or survivor is not going to talk about it. They don't come to me and say, I went through this. They come to me that I'm having relationship issues. This is my third marriage. Or I've got alcohol addictions. Or I'm into drugs. They will talk to me about trauma 3 months or 6 months into therapy, when I have held enough space for them to be comfortable.
When you've gained their
Yes.
confidence.
Yes.
They'll
When-
talk about everything else
Yes.
but the main part.
Yes, it's hard. It took me 37 years to speak about it. So they will not talk about it. They are not even aware that that is linking to this relationship issues or this addiction issues. So first I have to make them aware, or half of them are so not even aware of their emotions, that they have blocked their emotions, desensitized completely. I have to first teach them how to feel,
Yeah.
express anger, and it's okay to cry, and it's okay to feel what you're feeling. So that takes, like, digging layers and layers of stuff to get them to that space where they understand.
So you are suggesting that we step back, we don't offer any judgment, any
No.
criticism,
No.
any statement. We just let the individual be.
I would say give unconditional presence. It's so easy for us to judge.
Put
Can
the
we
mobile
just-
phones away.
Yes. Can we just say,
Put the TV,
yes,
just switch the TV
Yes.
off, no computers, no nothing.
Yeah.
Give attention to the
Yes.
individual who's present there.
we don't listen. We're either in the phone, we're somewhere else, and somebody's talking. Can we just look at that person and listen? It takes courage to speak. Give that unconditional presence. Have some patience. And just tell them, no judgment, no nothing. I'm here with you unconditionally.
It is quite important. If I may share one incident here, there was a session which was held in our own city, and it was at a place where a lot of well-heeled people were present, so-called educated from good families, because you couldn't be in that place unless you were driving a certain car or you had certain amount of money with you. When the session closed, people came across and they wanted to speak, and I saw this girl, pretty, beautiful, young, drop dead gorgeous, and I could see it in her eyes that she wanted to say to me, to say hello. And because other people were there, I could not do that immediately, but at the same time I wanted her to know, I'm there, I have noticed, don't go away. So all I did was, while speaking with others, answering their questions, I held out my hands out like this. I extended it towards her, so she knew it is in my direction. And in response, she held her arms out too to grab my hands. And when she did, I noticed over a dozen cuts on both the arms. Nobody in the family noticed for over 2 years. She even wrote a poem, something along golden sweater or yellow sweater, because that was her favorite sweater. And through that sweater, you can see the red blood oozing out. And the family kept believing that it was this red thread which is making the sweater red. I personally, even after 3.5 years, I have no idea how can you miss that your child is suffering. So somewhere we need to accept that abuse can happen in any shape or form, anywhere, to us, to our loved ones, the ones playing in the streets or in the parks, but they are all ours. We are all part of the same society. We are part of the same fabric.
Yes.
Sorry, I digress there.
Not at all, it's fine.
I guess.
You can have questions.
Yes, the house is open. If anybody would like to ask any question.
In fact, you referred to the aspect of healing.
Yes, please.
So, what is your technique, and how are you able to
Heal
give that
childhood.
comfort feel and that comfort to the person who is in need of to be healed?
To be healed. See, it happens in a process. It's a 3 month to 6 months to a 1 year program. And the work that I do, it's called inner child work, where you're literally looking after that wounded child which was abused years ago. So now you become the parent of that child, as in me, and I have to protect and rescue that child. So there are fair amount of techniques that we use in our work, but main thing, the core, the crux of my work, the bulk of my work is inner child healing. So in order to completely heal, in order to lead a healthy and a satisfying life now, you have to have a happy and healed inner child. So there are many processes, many techniques. You have to take them back into their past, make them feel the pain, and go through that trauma again to relive what happened, whatever they've suppressed in the body, because body keeps scores. So there are various ways in how we do. But once what we're addressing, what we're dealing with here is, we're dealing with the root cause. So you will never be triggered again. You will never have that PTSD again when you see some fights or arguments or loud noises or flashbacks or nightmares. You see? So we're pulling out the weed from the root in this kind of work. Not just like that and it grows up again. It doesn't really go away, because that trauma is there with you till the day you die. And your inner child, the wounded child inside of you, is going to be there till the day you die. So either you address it and heal it, or you kind of create suffering for yourself.
And has it really changed people's lives?
Hell yes, it's changed yes, absolutely, it's changed my life. This is the only technique, and they use this technique for war veterans, for rape victims, and so on and so forth. Because this is the only, it's called shadow work by Carl Jung, who is the father of psychology. He came out of this term earlier. It all is kind of buried in our subconscious mind. It will not be known. You won't know what's buried in your subconscious mind till somebody triggers you, or till you are face to face with the same situation in your present life. So we have these responses called fight, flight, or freeze mode. So either you'll be fleeing away or fighting away, or you're angry. But when you're having these extreme reactions now, it's linked to your past or your abuse. So then we move from there. I can't kind of give you the details how we kind of do it, but it's a process.
I have a question.
Yes, please. Sorry.
When you have explained a very significant manner your own personal experiences, which is a very clear. But you told us is that your mother was a witness to your abuse.
She was an abuser herself.
She was an abuser herself.
Yes, please.
And now, what feeling do you get when Mother's Day is there, and still do you carry those feelings against her, or you're still reconciled to that?
Well, I have forgiven her for that matter because I understand now. I've looked at it from a very different perspective, cosmic perspective, spiritual perspective. But to answer your question, I don't have a concept of mother till now. Mother's Day, it doesn't mean anything to me. I mean, we celebrate people who have been abused by their mothers. We are kind of okay with it, that our mothers abused us and we had toxic parents. So it really doesn't, there is no emotion to family, to parents, to that kind of connection. I don't understand it.
Good. Thank you.
What is the percentage of success? Say if you 100 people come to you.
Yes,
I mean, most of them come out of it.
100%. No exceptions to that rule.
So that's
Yes, please.
I believe there must have been some positive lifeline which allowed you to come all the way and heal yourself. I don't think a person is completely devastated.
Yes.
There is some lifeline somewhere which keeps on
Yes.
going.
You will have to read my book to understand that. There was always a lifeline at the end of the dark cloud. And you are given this wound because you are meant to heal it yourself. Heal yourself first and then teach others how to heal themselves. So for me, it was my trauma that led me to this purpose that I'm helping others do it. So yes, every time there was an ebb and flow, there was something bad and then there was something good. So I would always look at that something good and hold on to it as a rope and move on and move on and move on. So
I
Yes.
need something good in relationships somewhere, environment somewhere.
I would look at that and that's what kept me going.
Can you share maybe a couple of the good points that perhaps Dr. Jerath is talking about?
Music, writing, nature, what else? You've read my book. I've kind of forgotten
Your
what I...
dogs.
My dogs, yeah. Dogs came much later. You're talking about healing now, or you're talking about how did I survive child abuse? Sorry, I just want you to be
I mean, all along there must have been
something to keep me going.
something
Yes,
to sustain.
yes.
keep
My
you
job,
going.
I was a flight attendant. I would fly places. I would see things, but I was always homesick.
But you were
Yeah.
running away, I think, by doing that.
I was kind of putting on so many masks, and I was very good at doing that. I would feel hurt, and I would cry for hours, and then I would get up and go out and dress up and show up, and yeah. So I would do that for myself, but I was kind of just coping with it.
Even as a child, I would say, even as a young child.
Yes. Children don't have that concept of being negative for that long. They live in the moment. So something happens, they will cry, and after half an hour, you'll see the child playing.
I remember a cousin of mine
Sure.
treated very shabbily.
Yes.
But among the relatives, there were some who gave him
Yes.
quite a lot of affection.
Affection.
and
Yes.
support.
Yes. Yes.
So something like
That
that.
keeps going,
There is
yeah.
always something,
Something. Yeah.
some
I
lifeline.
don't remember my relatives, but yeah. Of course, there was something.
Your mother in recent year?
Pardon, have I seen her? I haven't seen her in a long, long time. I spoke to her while I was writing this book, which was the final part of my healing.
Why don't you present this book to your mother?
Well, she's aware of it, and
She will definitely listen.
she hasn't till date acknowledged me as her child. So the final conversation when
She's alive.
yes, she's alive.
And do you have any brothers or sisters?
A younger sister. She's in Canada.
Not in touch with you?
Off and on, but she's more towards the family because she was kind of brought up differently. So there is a thing between us, like, we're cordial and we're amicable with each other, but nothing more than that.
And how was her childhood?
Much different than mine. Well, she witnessed it, most of it. When the book came out, she said, I'm not going to buy it and read it because it's bringing back all those memories when I used to see you get beaten up and I didn't know what to do. So
The young girls over there, I was told before the session that they have a few questions to ask, and I would invite you, please do so.
oh wait, okay.
Okay. Devyani?
I just want to know on this healing process, like you said, you take them back.
Yes,
back to
yes.
trauma. So I just want to know what percent of that is done, because like I noticed when you were talking about it, like you say you're healed now.
It's
but
still in
it
progress.
still brings
Sorry.
tears to your eyes. So
Yes.
what I want to ask is that how long was the trauma and how much time did it take you to heal, and are you ever going to heal? Because I mean, sorry, but I don't think you're healed still. I mean, if you're still crying, it means that trauma is not going away. So how do you manage that? How do you reach that level where you can talk about it without any emotion? Like you can become indifferent?
No,
Time like that?
I'm never going to be indifferent, number one. Number two, I'm still work in progress, still committed to my own progression. And things bringing tears to my eyes, that was because my doggy passed away 1.5 months ago, who was like my lifeline. So when I was talking about my dogs, that brought tears to my eyes, and we're only human. We're going to cry, it's okay. But healing, you can't put a timeline on it. If you do that, then you're being really unfair on yourself. Oh, how long it's gonna take for me to heal, and then I'm gonna be okay. Then what you're telling yourself, I'm broken, I need to be mended, I need to be fixed. I'm telling you there is nothing wrong with you even today. You just need to integrate those parts of you which were wounded and then kind of lead your life. So to answer your question is, I don't know if I'm ever gonna heal, but I am so much better than what I was. I'm married the second time. That's my husband over there. He still pushes my buttons. He will still bring back the things, but your relationships will keep bringing up your childhood back. But instead of looking at your partner and blaming him, I will still do that for some time, but then I will turn inwards and see what part of my wound he has triggered and what I need to address. So it's an ongoing process. My friends will trigger me. Your relationships will trigger you. So there's no timeline.
So the healing actually involves not just you as a person, but your support system also.
They are your biggest spiritual teachers and messengers, the people who are like, pardon my language, or the assholes in your life, or who are under your skin, and mainly your interpersonal relationships, your close friends and your husbands and your partners. They will literally show you the mirror of your childhood. So it's a continuous process. It's not like, okay, I went through this amount of trauma, now I'm healed, now I'm okay. I'm healed, I'm happy, I'm healed, but something comes up. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm very open, very authentic. So what, it came up, I need to heal this part, and I need to heal this part. That's okay.
Like, what I wanted to know is, it's okay to keep going back to that thought child.
You don't have to go back. You don't have to go back all the time.
You want to forget that part, or you want to go back to it and heal it and then forget it?
You will not be able to forget it unless you go back there and deal with the pain. And then you don't need to revisit it, because it's not going to get an emotional charge or an emotional trigger out of you when somebody triggers you. Let's say you see a movie or somebody says something, or a sight or a smell. It's not going to have that emotional charge. So that means that wounded part is healed completely. So it happens in parts. It's like an art. It takes time.
Like you keep going back to it till you reach a level where you can...
You keep going back to the part which is wounded. It could be a part which feels abandoned. It could be a part which feels rejected. You see? So, like it's a garden, right? So there are seeds which are put. Some seeds got sunshine and everything. A seed didn't get sunshine and rain and whatever. That seed is still there. So a part of you, let's say 5-year-old you, went through a trauma, you're still stuck there. Unless and until you go there and rescue that 5-year-old, you're not going to be okay. It's going to keep showing up in your life. You know what I'm saying? But once you heal that child becomes okay. So basically the answer is, meet your needs, heal that part. Don't be ashamed of yourself. Don't suppress that, no, I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need. You become your parent now and start looking after yourself in this moment. And then from there on, you start attracting people who will love and respect you, same ways. But the healing happens with you and your inner child. If you keep suppressing that, then you have become the abusive parent. There's no difference between you and your abusive parents. So that's the part of learning where you learn to love yourself. You see?
Any other question?
I'd like to ask something.
Yes, please.
Did you kind of decipher what was why did your parents treat the two sisters differently? I mean, why was it that you were brought up completely differently?
That was the question I wanted to ask my mom when I was writing the book. And that was the part where I was suicidal. Everything was over at that time when I came to that part of the book, and this was not out of malice or anything. I wanted to ask her from a woman-to-woman perspective that what made you do what you did? What made you give away your newborn child? But the answer that came and the phone banging on my face just kind of took me right back there where I had kind of come out of. And I think for 1 month I didn't touch this book, and all my friends and all said, you are not going to write. But I was in a very, very dark place, and I think that was also a process of healing. But to answer your question, I haven't gotten any answers to that, and I think most of it, we don't get answers to all the questions. We don't have closures, right? But we've kind of...
Yeah, if you look at it from a
spiritual perspective, I was just going to come to that.
Yeah.
So I have made peace with that I had chosen these set of parents, I had chosen these sort of lessons for me to do the work that I'm doing right now, and that has given me peace, and that's kind of, it's been a tremendous... That's the only answer. Yes, because in 3D perspective, it doesn't make sense what happened to me.
Yes.
However, when I look at it from a cosmic perspective, that I chose all of this to learn my soul lessons and to do the work that I'm doing now, that's what's giving me peace. It makes sense.
That is.
Yes.
That is the only
Yes. Absolutely.
I think it's interesting you bring this up because in our culture or in our country, spirituality and religion, that's kind of the hangers we put everything on. If we can't make sense of it, this was karma. If
No, I wouldn't. You know, I work in a university in Hawaii, the Quantum University.
Yes.
Where we,
I do that work so much. Yes.
Yeah.
Quantum
so
healing, yes.
All that we do is supposed to be beyond science.
Yes,
All the
yes.
answers are beyond
Beyond
science.
science, yes.
And that's the only way you can actually get an
Yes.
answer, because there's a whole world happening.
Yes.
It's not that we're going to die and that's it.
Yes.
We're going to go, our soul never dies.
Yes.
It continues. And
I
continues.
completely agree with you, but the incidents I was going to share is a couple of months ago, we were working with a bunch of children who had been given up by their parents for A, B, or C reasons. And obviously, there can't be anything more traumatic for a child than being given up, right? And we had this question answer session, and then we asked the children, ask anything you want. You know, we were feeling that we can address any of these queries which the kids might have. Believe you me, they asked 2 questions. I'll only share the first one, which was, why do we believe in God? We did not have the answer to that question. We still do not have that.
That's the frequency they're
Yes.
traveling on.
Yes. Yes.
So they will only look for answers on that frequency.
So
And
religion
only a person-
has no impact.
No, I so understand what you mean. It's just that I cannot answer you because we are on a
Different
Different
frequency.
platform.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the reason I didn't bring in the cosmic perspective.
Yeah, I was not, because I was really enjoying what you're saying. But
Yes.
I was kind of wondering why you're not kind of getting
I'm not sure if they're
Anybody
open
else
to,
is there.
to
Yeah,
understand that
right.
aspect. Yes.
Any more questions? Monica.
Thank you very much. This is extremely, I have no words to describe, but it's very touching and very empowering as well.
Thank you.
And I just had a question is that, you know, what you describe and looking forward to reading the book is extreme form of abuse, and that's what Supreet deals with, extreme form of abuse. Very severe trauma, but I think when we look at ourselves as a society, there's probably lesser form of abuse that is going on in many relationships and many families. And you mentioned emotional neglect, which
Yes.
sounds,
Yes.
which sounds very mild, but it is not.
Not
It
at
is
all.
not at all mild, and it can be really devastating. And then you have toxic family members who
Yes.
will hurt you,
Yes.
not physically, not
Yes.
sexually, but in many other ways.
Yes.
And if there are any tips or guidance for people, because I'm sure many people will come across such family members or such toxic environment, which maybe you don't go to a counselor because it's not the extreme form of abuse, but it's nevertheless very damaging and very hurtful. And so, any thoughts on that?
So you're asking me tips for the parents, or you're asking me tips for the family members who are witnessing the abuse?
Both. Yeah.
See, I have two programs which are running. One is the inner child program and the past healing, where you can call it like a rehab for people who are survivors of dysfunctional families. And the other program is conscious parenting, where they learn how to emotionally parent your children, right? So how you can help is how you can help your children heal your own wounds. Don't pass that on to them. And if you're seeing something else happening around you, listen to them and value their emotions. Don't suppress their emotions, because emotions are your guidance system. They're trying to tell you something about that. You suppress them, that's what becomes your cancer. That's what becomes your diseases moving forward. So, and also teach them how to kind of believe in themselves and believe in what happens is, if child is feeling something and the parent is saying no, we disconnect from our emotional guidance system. So parent any child emotionally, and if you're witnessing something, stand up for it, speak up. So you can't go to a counselor, but you can at least help each other and kind of bring it to their attention that that's wrong way of parenting, don't do that. That has an impact. Making them aware of what is the impact. Once they understand what it's going to do to that child moving forward, I'm sure they will think twice, at least, if nothing. People don't know, I'm not sure in India people are aware of what childhood abuse can do to you. So that's what I want to bring forward as a coach and as whatever you want to call it. Like, it's my mission to kind of let people know and make them aware that this is what happens if you're abused, and it doesn't have to be my kind of abuse. Like I mentioned to you, it could be overprotective parents, or you being compared to your sibling or to another kid in school. It can have devastating, most damaging effects for the rest of their life, you see. So educating parents, creating awareness, and talk to people and let them know. You see how word spreads, I guess.
Thank you, Priya.
Thanks.
Can I have just one last question, if there is any, from anyone? Or have we addressed all the queries? Well, in that case, may I bring the session to a close?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This book is available with the English bookshop. One can pick it up from there, and can be ordered online also.
Capital Bookstore also is carrying it.
I believe that some of the points which you have put forth regarding the parenting, which is, I think, one of the key issues, and especially when parents do not know about parenting.
Yes,
or the
emotional
kind of
parenting,
damage
yes.
they might be doing
Yes.
unknowingly.
Yes.
Unknowingly. So that is the
Most important
thing
thing,
that
yes.
has to be taken care of. So we are really grateful to you.
Thank you.
And that you came all the way from Bombay, and we do hope that your journey back to your hometown, Dachai,
Which I'm planning to take.
will
Yeah.
also bring in more healing.
Healing, yeah. Need to go
And,
back there and heal, yeah.
I think that should help you come over
Come
those,
up, yes.
those days of trauma. But nevertheless, we all have been touched by the way you put forth your ideas, and I think it's a collective healing that we are a part of you.
Yes.
And I'm sure that this message could also go out to amongst us also, that we can not only heal ourselves and become more useful
Yes.
in helping somebody
Yes.
heal themselves or herself. So thank you very much on behalf of Chandigarh Literary Society. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Supri, and kudos to the kind of work which you are doing. And thank you to each one of you for being a part of this discussions. And I do hope that this will, in whatever the efforts are being made, and whenever you notice any this kind of a, what I would call it as an event happening in somebody else's life, I think we should come forward and take a corrective action. So thank you, Priya.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you, CJ.
Thank you,
Can I
Vivek,
just speak?
for being a part of this journey, and thank you.
2 minutes.
Kishiji.
Yeah, I just need to take 2 seconds. Thank you, CJ. Thank you,
you.
Supreet. Thank you, Kishi. Thank you, Nina. Thank you, Vivek. Thank you, each person who is present in this room, for taking out the time and listening to me, and giving me this platform to speak about it and read my book. What I want you guys to do today, when you go home, just do 2 things. Ask yourself, how has my childhood affected me? And look at your children. What's going on over there? I bet you're not going to look at your children the same way after. And I hope I have enlightened you enough on this subject. You will be a different person when you walk out of this room. You will be looking at yourself differently and your children differently and what's happening around you. Just be aware. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.